Treatise on true devotion to the Blessed Virgin. Saint Louis Mary de Montfort. Part 2. The Perfect Devotion to Our Lady. Chapter 3. The Perfect Consecration to Jesus Christ. 1. A complete consecration to Mary. As all perfection consists in our being conformed, united and consecrated to Jesus, it naturally follows that the most perfect of all devotions is what which comforts, unites, and consecrates as most complete life to Jesus. Now, of all God's creatures, Mary is the most conformed to Jesus. It therefore follows that, of all devotion to her mates for the most effective consecration and conformity to Him. The more one is consecrated to Mary, the more one is consecrated to Jesus. That is why perfect consecration to Jesus is but a perfect and complete consecration of oneself to the Blessed Virgin, which is the devotion TREATISE, or in other words, it is the perfect renewal of the vows and promise of holy baptism. This devotion consists in giving oneself entirely to Mary, in order to belong entirely to Jesus through her. It requires us to give our body with its sense and members, 2. Our soul with its faculties, 3. Our present material possessions and all we shall acquire in the future, 4. Our interior and spiritual possessions, that is, our merits, virtues, and good action on the past, the present, and the future. In other words, we give her all that we possess both in our natural life and in our spiritual life, as well as everything we shall acquire in the future in the order of nature, of grace, and of glory in heaven. This we do without any reservation, not even of appending her or the smallest good deed. And we give for all eternity without claiming or expecting in return for our offering and our service any other reward than the honor of belonging to our Lord through Mary, and in Mary, even though our mother were not, as in fact she always is, the most generous and appreciative of all God's creatures. Note here that two things must be considered regarding our good work, namely satisfaction and merit, in other words, their satisfactory of prayer value and their meritorious value. The satisfactory or prayer value of a good work is a good action, insofar as makes standing atonement for the punishment due to sin or obtains some new grace. The meritorious value or merit is a good action, insofar as merits grace and eternal glory. Now by this consecration of ourselves to the Blessed Virgin, we give her all satisfactory and prayer value, as well as the meritorious value of our good works. In other words, all the satisfactions and the merits. We give her our merits, graces, and virtues, not that she might give them to others, for they are, strictly speaking, now transferable, because Jesus alone, in making himself our servant, with his Father, had the power to impart his merit to us, but we give them to her that she may keep, increase and embellish them for us, as we shall explain later, and we give her our acts of atonement, that she may every day work she pleases for God's greater glory. It follows then 1. That by this devotion we give to Jesus all we can possibly give him, and in the most perfect manner, that is through Mary's hands. Indeed, we give him far more than we do the other devotion, which require us to give only part our time. Some of our good work or acts of atonement and penance. In this devotion, everything is given and consecrated, even the right to dispose freely of one's spiritual goods and the satisfaction earned by daily good work. This is not done even in religious orders. Members of religious orders give God their earthly goods by the woe of poverty, the goods of the body by the woe of chastity. Their free will by the woe of obedience, and sometimes their freedom of movement by the woe of enclosure. But they do not give him by this woes the liberty and right to dispose of the value of their good work. They do not spoil themselves of what a Christian considers most precious and most dear, his merit and satisfactions. 2. It follows then that anyone who in this way consecrates and sacrifices himself voluntarily to Jesus through Mary may no longer dispose of the value of any of his good actions. All his sufferings, all his thoughts, words, and deeds belong to Mary. She can then dispose of them in accordance with the will of her Son and for his greater glory. This dependence, however, is without detriment to the duties of a person's present and future state of life. One such duty, for example, will be that of a priest who, by virtue of his office or otherwise, must apply the satisfactory or prayer value of the Holy Mass to a particular person. For this consecration can only be made in accordance with the order established by God and in keeping with the duties of one state of life. 3. It follows that we consecrate ourselves at one and the same time to Mary and to Jesus. We give ourselves to Mary because Jesus chose her as the perfect means to unite himself to us, unite us to him. We give ourselves to Jesus because he is our last head. Since he is our Redeemer and our God, we are indebted to him for all the world that we are. Two, a perfect renewal of baptismal promise. I have said that this devotion could be called a perfect renewal of the words and promises of holy baptism. Before baptism, every Christian was a slave of the devil because he belonged to him. At baptism, he has either personally or through his sponsor solemnly renounced Satan, his seductions and his work. He has chosen Jesus as his master and sovereign Lord and undertaken to depend upon him as a slave of love. That is what is done in the devotion I am presenting to you. We renounce the devil, the world, sin and self. As expressed in the act of consecration, we give ourselves entirely to Jesus through Mary. We even do something more than at baptism. When ordinarily our God parents speak for us, and we are given to Jesus only by proxy. In this devotion we give ourselves personally and freely, and we are fully aware of what we are doing. In Holy Baptism we do not give ourselves to Jesus explicitly through Mary, nor do we give him the blood of our good actions. After baptism, we remain entirely free either to apply the value to anyone we wish or keep it for ourselves. But by this consecration we give ourselves explicitly to Jesus through Mary's hands, and we included in our consecration the value of all our actions. Men, say Saint Thomas, woe in practice to renounce the devil and all his seductions. This word, says Saint Augustine, is the greatest and the most indispensable of all woes. Canon law experts say that the Saint The vow we make and practice is the most important of all vows. But does anyone keep this great vow? Does any fulfill the promises of Bhakti's faithful? It is not true that nearly all Christians prove unfaithful to the promise made to Jesus in Bhaktis. Where does this universal failure come from, if not from man's habitual forgetfulness of the promises and responsibilities of Bhaktis, and from the fact that scarcely anyone needs a personal ratification of the contract made with God through his spouse? This is so through the Council of Saints, convened by order of the Emperor Royce the Debonair, to remedy the great disorders of Christendom, came to the conclusions that the main cause of this moral breakdown was man's forgetfulness of his baptismal obligation and his disregard for them. It could suggest no better way of remedying this great evil than to encourage all Christians to renew the promises and vows of baptism. The Catechism of the Council of Trent, faithful interpreter of the whole Council, exhortates to the same and to encourage the faithful to remember and hold fast to the belief that they are bound and consecrated as slaves to Jesus, their Redeemer and Lord. The parish priest should exhort the faithful never to lose sight of the fact that they are bound in conscience to dedicate and consecrate themselves forever to their Lord and Redeemer and his lives. Now the Council, the Father of the Church, and experience itself all indicate that the best remedy for the frequent lapses of Christians is to remind them of the responsibilities of their baptism and have them renew the vows they made at the time. It is not reasonable, therefore, to do this in our day and in a perfect manner, by adapting this devotion with this consecration to our Lord through His Blessed Mother. I say in a perfect manner, for in making this consecration to Jesus, they are adopting the perfect means of giving themselves to Him, which is the most blessed Virgin Mary. No one can object that this devotion is novel or of novel law. It is not new, since the councils, the fathers of the Church, and many authors, both and past present, speak of consecration to our Lord, or renewal of baptismal vows, and something going back to ancient times, and recommended to all the faithful. Nor is it valueless, since the chief source of moral disorders and the consequent eternal loss of Christian spring from the forgetfulness of the practice and indifference to it. Some may object that this devotion makes us powerless to help the souls of our relatives, friends, and benefactors, since it requires us to give our Lord, through Mary, the value of our good work, prayer, penance, and almsgiving. To then reply, 1. It is inconceivable that our friends, relatives, and benefactors should suffer and lose because we have dedicated and consecrated ourselves unconditionally to the service of Jesus and Mary. It would be an affront to the power and goodness of Jesus and Mary, who will silently come to the end of our relative friends and benefactors, whether from our maker spiritual assets or from other sources. 2. This devotion does not prevent us from praying for others, but the living and the dead. Even so, the application of our good works depends on the will of our Blessed Lady. On the contrary, it will make us pray with even greater confidence. Imagine a rich man who, waiting to show his strength for a great prince, gives his entire fortune to him. Will not the man have greater confidence in asking the prince to help one of his friends who needed assistance? Indeed, the prince could only be too happy to have such an opportunity of proving his gratitude to one who had sacrificed all that he possessed to enrich him, thereby impoverishing himself. Do him honor. The same must be said of our Lord and of our Lady. They will never allow themselves to be outdone in gratitude. Some may say, perhaps, if I give Our Lady the full value of my action to able into whom she wills, I may have to suffer a long time in purgatory. This obsession, which arises from self-love and from an awareness of the generosity of God and His Holy Mother, refutes itself. Take a fervent and generous soul who values God's interests more than his own. He gives God all he has without reserve, till he give no more. He desires only that the glory and the kingdom of Jesus might come through his mother, and he does all he can to bring this about. Will this generous and unselfish soul, I ask, be punished more in the next world for having been more generous and unselfish than other people? Far from it, for we shall see later that our Lord and His Mother will prove most generous to such a soul with gift of nature, grace and glory in this life and in the next. We must now consider as briefly as possible the motive which can make this devotion to us. 2. the wonderful effects it produces in faithful souls, and 3. The practice of this devotion.